Exciting news, everyone. Just when you were looking for a brand new show to binge during the hot days of August, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy's reality show is finally out. Now, you may remember back in May, and we talked about this at the time, Duffy and his wife, Fox News anchor Rachel Campos Duffy, announced the show with great fanfare on Fox News. The premise of the show was that the Duffys, along with their 9 children, took a massive road trip all across the country, supposedly to encourage Americans to take road trips of their own.
You could go for 2 hours. You could drive for 2 days.
Yeah.
You could do a day trip. It fits any budget to do a road trip.
Does it now? Needless to say, the reality show got a lot of backlash. A lot of Americans were actually pretty mad about the price of gas and about the Trump administration's role in making road trips a whole lot less affordable. There's also the issue of how a cabinet secretary found the time to film an entire reality show. And yes, we're showing you clips of it as we talk about it here, just to give you a sense. I mean, do you remember how mad Sean Duffy was at Biden's transportation secretary, Pete Buttigieg, for taking a singular vacation and going on paternity leave when his twins were born?
What's striking is how often this happens. There's a crisis, and Pete Buttigieg decides to ignore it. Mayor Pete went on vacation in Portugal just a couple weeks ago as rail workers prepared to strike. He was on paternity leave as dozens of container ships couldn't enter the country a year ago.
Now remind me, when Pete Buttigieg was transportation secretary, did we have the longest TSA shutdown in American history with the longest TSA wait times in American history? Nope, we did not. That 75-day shutdown was while Sean Duffy was the transportation secretary. And while Duffy claims he only took a few days here or there over the course of 7 months to film this series, some of those days were notably during that shutdown. Now, in response to the backlash he got about this show, Duffy called his critics anti-road trip, saying that, quote, the radical, miserable left hated the show because, quote, it's too wholesome, it's too patriotic, and too joyful. I hate to break it to you, Mr. Secretary, but the problem here wasn't too much joy. I mean, beyond the rising cost of gas and the time Duffy took to film the series, the big problem with Sean Duffy's reality show is who paid for it. The series shows Sean Duffy's 11-person family not just road tripping around the country, not just driving nice cars and staying in nice hotels and eating out constantly, but doing lots of fun, expensive-looking things like snowmobiling and going down the water slide on a docked cruise ship, which I should note is not something one typically does on an affordable road trip or a road trip of any kind. So who paid for it all? In response to the backlash about the finances of the project, Duffy declared that not a taxpayer dime was spent on any of it, and that no one in his family was paid for their participation in the show. The Department of Transportation told MS Now that career ethics officials reviewed and approved Duffy's participation in and travel for the series. The department also told MS Now that all production costs for this trip were paid for by a nonprofit called the Great American Road Trip, which just so happens to be sponsored by a bunch of companies in the transportation industry. Companies, I will note, that Sean Duffy, as the transportation secretary, has a whole lot of power over. The Wall Street Journal reports that companies like Boeing and Toyota donated $1 million each. And when you watch the show, that is pretty obvious. Almost every car the Duffy family drives is a Toyota, and the Toyota logo is often prominently displayed in the shot. The Duffy family also takes a tour of a Boeing cargo plane at a Boeing plant in South Carolina, which, like going down the water slide on a dock cruise ship, is not what one typically does on a road trip.
What's up, Team Boeing?
Hey, welcome.
How are you guys doing? Good to see you, Jeff.
We're doing great. Pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's impressive. I've seen the little airplanes, little baby ones, and now this is the big airplanes.
This is the big leagues here.
The Dream Lifter is the modified 747 that we built for this program.
So the Dream Lifter actually moves the pieces. This is a massive airplane that's the workhorse of making the South Carolina plant work.
So you're going up in one of the biggest airplanes in the world. Wow.
Wow, indeed. Oh, and that cruise ship I mentioned, it was a Royal Caribbean cruise ship, which, of course, is another one of the sponsors that funded the show's nonprofit, of course. So is Google, whose parent company owns the autonomous vehicle company Waymo. So, of course, here we go.
We're going to go to a company called Waymo. So I'm going to bring the kids to see one of the most advanced autonomous vehicles that we have in America. This is the future of transportation.
We are in a Waymo. It's driving. Here's your kids. They're pretty thrilled.
It's kind of creepy, but it's cool.
Do you feel scared, guys?
No.
It actually drives very, very well.
Priceless bit of advertising there, isn't it, for Waymo? Now, back in May, Politico obtained the pitch deck sent to sponsors of this trip outlining exactly what sponsors would get for different amounts of money. $500,000 gets you some stuff, but $1 million got you more. I mean, you see the problem here, right? The transportation secretary and his family get a big, expensive vacation that most Americans can't afford for free, funded by a nonprofit that is funded by transportation companies that he regulates. That is a gift. The Transportation Department says that ethics officials approved the gift of this trip from the nonprofit that made the series. The nonprofit says that it operates independently and is in compliance with all applicable laws and disclosure requirements. It says that its sponsors would never expect anything in return for their donations. We've reached out to sponsors like Toyota and Boeing and Waymo and Royal Caribbean. We have not heard back. As a law professor who specializes in government ethics put it to the New York Times, though, this is really gift laundering. This is an incredibly corrupt endeavor, and it's dangerous because it affects public safety. And that's because as Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy is supposed to be regulating businesses like Toyota and Boeing without fear or favor. We also reached out to the Secretary's office and asked a series of pretty straightforward questions, you can see them on your screen, about whether his agency is overseeing business with the companies that sponsored his show. Again, we're showing you those questions on the screen. Now, a spokesperson for his office declined to answer really any of those questions, instead just saying that, quote, career ethics officials reviewed every aspect of this partnership and cleared both the secretary's participation, and that regulatory decisions at DOT are guided by career safety professionals, the law, and the facts. His spokesperson also decided that instead of answering the pretty straightforward questions we asked, he would just attack me personally, which is obviously something one does when their boss has nothing to hide. Stay classy, Nate, from DOT. I'm watching you. We also invited Secretary Duffy on this show tonight so he could answer our questions himself. We've not heard back. Of course we haven't, and we'll be right back.